Let's take a tarot world tour today with a mini trip of 7 decks in 6 countries. Today I will be replying to the tag One World Tarot, put together by Elements of Tarot and Nova Mundi Tarot, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to do a part 2 of my foreign language decks or multilingual decks that aren't in my native language, which is English. And you can find the part 1 of all of those decks in the description below. I'll put a link to that video there. So this will just be an extension on that, and we will get to look at some semi-new decks that I have added on. How about we get right into our first deck? Why don't we start off in Japan with Stella's Tarot? Now, I just got this one in this month, so I thought it was a perfect chance to slide it in. The guidebook is in English, so that is super handy, and so are the card titles. Now, this is still in order because I have not used it yet. This one popped on my radar, and it was one of those where I've seen it around before, and it certainly has grabbed my attention then, but something, for some reason, just really grabbed me recently, and I was like, I have to have. And I absolutely love Japanese artwork, and really, I just love Japan and the Japanese culture. I have been obsessed with Japan since I was in about 5th or 6th grade. My family has hosted a couple of Japanese exchange students. I've been to Japan twice. I have been a super mega fangirl of Japanese street style, having Fruits books when I was a 6th grader and absolutely admiring those street photography photos. I still have a collection of Fruits magazines, and last time I traveled to Japan, I bought as many magazines as I possibly could at any store. So Japanese style, Japanese art, graphics, illustration, they just have this certain look and tone, and the way that they mix and match ideas and concepts and sources and just everything really speaks to me. They do a great job at keeping things busy and visually information dense while still very clean design, modern, and easy to read the artwork. And that has just always spoken to me. And I just love so much about it. And this deck I definitely am excited to use. I've been keeping off on engaging with new decks that I bring in during the month, so this one will go back in its box, but it is so pretty. An Oracle deck that I think I got around the end of last year is the new Gate Oracle. Now this one is one that the art style isn't necessarily one that I automatically or frequently gravitate towards, but this one just really spoke to me, and it was just one of those, you know? And this is in Japanese, so the Google Translate app does a fair enough job to get you a good idea of what the writing is. This deck is very soft, very sweet. It's calming, it's charming, it's cozy. It has a watery vibe to it. Still some good earthy elements as well, because you know I love a good element of earth. I don't know why I decided to pull cards with my left hand today, but this is how we're doing it. I'm just like, why did I decide to do this? This image speaks to me. It feels so magical for some reason. The way you're just centered in on that flower with some of those leaves poking over it just creates such depth and dimension. And then with the strong contrast of the dark leaves and that super pale flower, I don't know. And those little stars, too cute. Now, this one I haven't used that much since getting it. It also probably fits in a bit of the time of the year for now. When I got it, it was the deep, dark depths of winter. So sometimes I can be a seasonal girly and use decks that feel like my environment is. But I really love the sweetness. And like I said, it's one that's rather unusual stylistically for me to bring in, but We all have those outliers that just connect with us for some reason or another. I love the mix of animals, of humans, of this more sort of fantasy with a bit more reality. As we know, that is definitely a balance I look for and connect to in my decks and in the artwork. I also use the Google Translate app for the titles. And I have considered modding this because it would be a very easy trim job. But for now, I'm just going to stick it on. I like how they almost look like little Polaroids. And I'll just see how it goes, really. I just need more practice with it to see what practical use is going to work best for me. So from Japan, let's move to Korea and look at the 𝐃𝐞𝐤𝐬 Tarot. So this brief guidebook is in Korean, but once again, the Translate app does a fine enough job. Of course, this deck is gorgeous, and I think why I really connect to the artwork so much is because it has the storybook, visual storytelling vibe where the illustrations are very editorial, rather minimal, but pack a lot of emotion and a lot of space to insert your story, your angle, your use into. Meaning, it's not directly leading you in one way or another. You can pick at the threads and then decide where to take it. And I love that. This deck is just gorgeous. I love the limited color palette, the way things are cropped and scaled, and the compositions are just so interesting and dynamic. Super moody, but without feeling overly dark. Like there's still a softness about this. And once again, I love the balancing. I love the contrasting elements in artwork, in decks. That really intrigues me. That makes me feel like I can feel in this and just get a lot from it. I love building worlds as well. You know, I like to be led with some, but I like to fill in the gaps myself, at least when it comes to artwork. Now, if I'm reading a good book, like I want the author to really sell me and tell me and build me that story, right? But for me being the observer, for me being the reader, I like to fill in those blanks. I think the size also plays into the way this deck speaks. This slender and tall format really lends to that use of white space that says so much without saying anything. And it's just impressive. And I adore this deck in my collection. It is one I struggle to pair with because I want this to be the superstar in the spread, to be that main focus. But because it's so muted, because it's so soft in that terms visually, other decks quickly start to like take over and eat at the like visual space, and it starts to like sink into the background. So finding pairings that allow this to really pop and be the focus has been a challenge for me, and I definitely have come across some that I adore. But I'd say like the majority of my decks are pretty swappable and pairable. And then there's a small few that are like, no, we only have one or two we really like to work together. And this is definitely one of those. But that's okay. I'm definitely not complaining. It's just the way it is. It's the way I read, at least. So, but thrilled with this one. Absolutely adore it. And I'm glad I remembered to slide it in because I can't remember if I had this deck when I made my first part of this video. But anyways, let's continue on. Okay, this one is going to be a bit of a dual country. So we have tarot from the world behind the veil, and the publisher is based in China, if I'm correct, but I could totally be wrong. And the illustrator is based in Italy. So we got a little bit of a dual tag team here for one deck. Now, this guidebook has a brief English bit here. So it's really handy that you get both. Once again, Translate app does wonders. Now, I adore the illustrator's work, and I have most of her decks. I really adore her soft use of color and contrast. There is a bit of a muddiness to some of it. Not in a bad way. There's just a lot of softness layered on top of softness for the tones. And it gives it a certain vibe. It gives it a certain feel for sure. And I love that it almost balances it between all the sort of season transition period times. Like it feels like it can move into winter into spring for me, or summer into fall, or fall into winter. All those in betweens, it does such a phenomenal job meeting that moment for me. Of course, this is all my opinion and what works for me. And this one is so lovely. It's almost like a worldwide version of the Yokai Tarot with all that really great folklore vibes inserted. This is folklore from around the world. So I do find that when using this deck in a spread and pulling multiple cards from this deck within the spread can feel overwhelming because there's so many folklore figures and they all feel very strong and powerful in their visual impact and message. And because I don't know every single one, of course, there is one Finnish figure in here, which I am absolutely thrilled about. And I did not know that when I bought the deck. But because I have to reference the guidebook if I want to actually know the folklore character, of course, you could just read the card as you wanted to read the card. But to reference and understand what it's representing, it just feels like a lot to take on. There's like a lot to chew on. And when I have 3 of these cards in a spread, it just feels like it starts to yell at me. So this is definitely one where I have learned that one card works wonders for me, maybe 2. But beyond 2, I really do struggle with it. But if you want to just ignore what the entities, the beings are, the figures, then I probably wouldn't feel that way and I could just read it a bit more as like an illustration, as a storybook. But I do like to know, I do like to engage when I do use my decks because I'm just a curious person. I'm a forever student, so I just kind of like to have that brief knowledge. But this is definitely one that is a top deck for me. The Yokai Tarot is definitely one of my favorite mass market decks. It's phenomenal. And this one is right up there with it as well. Let's head on over to Finland, part of my heritage, of course. So this Finnish deck is all cat base. It's really cute. Now, I do have the large hardcover book with it. It is all in Finnish. I am hoping one day I can read and write Finnish. I would love that. But for now, good old translation app. And I haven't gotten into this that much, so I can't speak to it too much. But from what I understand, it's a bit of a mishmash system. So I figured, it's going to be one that I need to translate. I also need to just take it slow and digest the imagery, but also what I can from the translation. And then familiarize myself enough with the keywords on the card so that I can at least reference that quickly. It's funny because you guys know I'm a total dog person. Not that I don't love cats. I adore all animals, of course. But when it comes to regular pets, dogs are definitely where I lean. I mean, I'm begging my husband for a cat constantly, so I do want one. I've just never had a cool indoor cat. Growing up, we had a few cats, but they were mostly outdoor cats. They were allowed inside. They just like to live outside, of course. So I haven't had that sort of bonding connection with a cat before, and I just desperately want it. So I surprisingly do have a lot of cat decks, and I still really adore them. And of course, this being a Finnish cat deck, it was a no-brainer that I had to have. So I love that the artwork has this folksy style to it. I love the sort of goldeny mustard borders. They really pop with the blue, with the complementary colors. I also just adore design choices, design layouts that just feel a bit old school. there's something I find and have been finding super charming about that, and I'm really enjoying it as part of the artwork. You know, I feel like we all went on the no borders kick for a while back then, back in the day, not too far back in the day, but you know, and I'm a border appreciator when it fits right. You know what I mean? Which is funny because actually I think most of the decks we looked at have a border. So I guess that statement holds very true for me. But look at the images. How cute is this? This was really hard to get. I had to go through like over 10 websites to find this to get it shipped here. And there's still 2 Finnish Oracle decks that I would love to have that only ship within Finland. And I don't know anyone directly like that. Like, hey, can I order some Oracle decks to your house? You know what I mean? So yeah, maybe one day if I get to travel there, or if I have some shipping connection with somebody there one day, I definitely would like to bring in 2 other decks that are on my radar. So one day. So that was the Tarot World Tour. Thank you so much for tagging me in this. I absolutely love to see decks from around the world and not just our native countries. It really brings in a range of not only visuals, but also concepts as well. Different angles, different perspectives. It gets us to look at the cards in a different way than perhaps we're normally used to. And I think there's just something really cool about that. It's like reading a good book. Like each deck is like a really good book, and what are you going to learn from it? Okay, I guess maybe not all are amazing and great books or great and amazing decks that work out for us 100% of the time, but you know what I mean. Just kidding, we forgot one country and one deck. I was just about to like put the little outro scene together and I was like, oh shoot, one more. Okay, this is the Tell Me You Love Me Oracle, and it's the second deck in the series. I have both of the French one. So we will be looking at the French version. I don't know if this will be coming out in English one day like they did with the first version. I just prefer this production. I just think it goes with the collage artwork and really ties everything together. So I will say that I think the first one is still probably my favorite artwork wise, but I have the first one, so of course I need to have the second one. I think what I loved about the first artwork so much that there was a lot more use of different types of objects and scale. A lot of these feel like they all sit and hit in the exact same spot. Like these 3 portraits that we just saw, they're all about the same size, about in the same position, almost facing the same way. And while I love that for an art rule to keep things consistent and feeling like they live in a family still, it can get redundant. This one also has a lot more people. So now that I kind of got that out of the way, I love the ornate aspect of this digital collage with these gold foil borders, right? It really adds into that over-the-top maximalism of this style. It really feels luxe and rich and an over-the-top elegance, that in-your-face sort of money. And I think it's a fun visual style to play within. Of course, there's animals in here, you know me. Animals and objects like is a go-to. That is totally in my visual language. I'll accept the people, fine. If there has to be people, I'll take the people. And same thing for this with the other decks that aren't in English. I use the Translate app on the titles and in the book. Some of the words you can pick out being an English speaker and get an idea. But for the most part, I just like to use it, double check, make sure I'm on the right path and everything. These 2 decks, I'm not showing the first one, but in theory, both of these decks, I really like to use towards the darker time of the year. It has that tone and that vibe, but then it like punches it up with the flora and fauna and these like bolder, richer, jewel tone, more saturated colors. So it does a really great balance of keeping it dark and moody because that's how it is outside. That's maybe how you're feeling, but then it has this luxness and kind of just takes the edge off a bit. So I'm glad I was able to slip this one in at the end there. I can't believe I almost just went right over it. So now we have 7 decks in 6 countries. And everything else I was saying before still holds true as I was trying to move into my wrap-up outro there. So now, let's say our goodbyes and part ways. Okay, now we're wrapping up. So thank you so much for hanging out with me through this, for a third time, Tarot World Tour. I love the way that we can use and bring in decks not in our native language and still get something so much from it, because we are all speaking a similar tarot or oracle language, and then adding in that layer of artwork ascends past written word, and we're communicating beyond that. And that I find really interesting and really fascinating, how our brains can just pick up on so much and communicate something when we can't even speak the same language. And this is just a great example of the wide variety of decks out in the world by so many different creators from so many different cultures. And it's really great to be able to support such a range of that, even from countries you may never ever get the chance to visit. You're almost just getting like a little slice of that through 78 cards. So thank you, Aldana and Nova, for putting together the One World Tarot. It's been really great to see some of the decks that have already been shared. I haven't watched all the replies yet because I try not to sway too much of what decks or what I want to say. So thank you again. I hope you enjoyed this, and let me know in the comments any favorite decks you have that would fit on this world tour, or any that you enjoyed here. And until next time, I'll talk to you later. Bye.